Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the September issue of Supply Chain Information Flow. My name is David Johnson, and on behalf of ISM New Jersey's Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome you to Smart Procurement, AI tools to simplify your workflow. It is a beautiful day in sunny Princeton, New Jersey. I am very, very disappointed that I am sitting in a cool, air-conditioned office instead of walking around the lake and avoiding goose poop. But we must do what we must do. And today, we get to talk about one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. I am a long time, 20 plus years, almost 30 years, tech geek, tech procurement. I've always done tech. I'm never going to do anything else but tech. I love tech. That's why I'm not a CPO right now, because I'm just a tech guy. Yeah, please, in the chat, let us know where you're joining from, where you heard about us from. Ask any questions that you have, because we're going to put Jessica on the spot and make her answer all the cool stuff about AI. Today, AI is a huge, huge thing. It's so big. Everybody knows a little bit about Chat GPT, but AI has been around for a good long time. Just look at the movies. Pop culture has talked to us about AI for at least 30 years. In the 80s, it was war games. In the 90s, it was the Matrix. AI was going to turn us all into batteries and block out the sun. In the 70s, the Jetsons gave us Rosie the Robot, an AI that could clean your house and talk snarky to you. And nowadays, in real life, we have self-driving cars, self-driving trucks. We have autonomous robots in Amazon warehouses that are picking your boxes and driving them back to the distribution area to be put on a truck and eventually delivered to your house. But that doesn't really mean so much to us in our day-to-day work. In our day-to-day work, we need tools because we're understaffed and under-resourced. We need ways to create shortcuts and make our lives easier. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Today, we're going to give you some practical uses for AI, some really cool tools, some things you can do with Chat GPT and Gemini and Anthropic Claude that'll, save you some time in your day, maybe stop you from pulling out a couple of those hairs in your head and get you quality answers. Today, we have Jessica O'Malley, who's really had some great conversations with me around some of the things that she does on a regular basis, both personally and professionally, with her generative AI, with the generative AI tools that she has at her disposal. And I was like, you know what? People need to see what you're doing, especially us in procurement. If there are cool ways that we can cut down on our time in Durham, North Carolina, or Indianapolis, let's do it. So, Jessica, why don't you give us a quick introduction to you, how you fell into this joy for AI and generative AI in particular, and then let's start the show.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, David, thank you for the sacrifice of being indoors and not outside today. I appreciate you being here in your time. Hello, everybody. I am Jessica O'Malley. I am a procurement practitioner, and I've been in procurement for about 12 years. I probably late last year, early this year, was speaking with a mentor of mine, and he was asking me what I knew about AI. And we were having just open conversation about how AI really is going to impact procurement. And at the time, I didn't really know a lot of information about it, but it felt like maybe something that would be interesting to learn about. I then stumbled upon an AI and business certificate from my alma mater, and it felt like the universe was telling me that I needed to learn more about this. And so I dove into that program. It was a 15-week program where I got to learn some of the technical side of it, some coding, getting to learn the history of AI and just how to apply generative and traditional AI in business settings. So it was an excellent jumpstart for me. My main takeaway from all of that was that AI is here not to replace us, and it's not here to replace procurement practitioners, but it is here to enhance us and to allow us to do more with the less time it feels like we have every day.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And it's absolutely true. Um, we aren't going anywhere. AI is a tool. It is a shovel. Still need somebody to do the digging, and that's us, right? We are the creative forces behind all of those things. So where do we want to start? Where do you want to start? Well,
Well,
you know
I
what?
think,
Go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
I'm gonna let
Oh,
you. I'm gonna let you drive today. I'm gonna sit
okay.
back.
Well, the first thing I wanted to start with was a quick disclaimer for everybody. So just noting here that while generative AI applications can significantly enhance procurement practices, users should exercise caution and refrain from sharing proprietary or confidential information on publicly accessible AI platforms, including GPT sites. So always remember to protect sensitive data, use secure, compliant AI tools with your organization's guidelines. The fun part about today is most of the content that we've written within these slides is meant to be accessible without putting in proprietary information. So we're going to show you how, if your organization doesn't have a policy or an approved LLM to use, then we can show you how you can still get the things that you need by using the public websites and not giving away the proprietary information.
All right. What's next?
Well, if we're ready to dive right in. Just a quick history of AI. You kind of covered this, David, in your introduction. The concept of AI has been around since the 50s. It was coined in the 50s, and it's just continued to grow since then. Really, the main point to focus on today that we're going to look at is in the 2020s with the generative AI and the rise in the large language models, which is like the Chat GPTs. So some of the common ones that we'll talk about here, but we're really going to kind of focus in on Chat GPT. Some of the everyday use LLMs are Chat GPT, Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot. There's one called Venice that I've recently stumbled across, Anthropic's Claude, and then for if you're doing any sort of academic work or needing to look up sources, I've come across Consensus, and I absolutely love that site.
That's probably really good for the professors and college students among us.
Yeah, and if you homeschool your children or you have like assignments for them, like even helping with that, I think super helpful to know that it exists. All right, you
So
ready?
which is your preference, and why is that your preference?
ChatGPT is my preference. I don't know if I have a real reason. I kind
No,
of just
okay.
fell into it. I sometimes do cross-reference my prompts across different platforms to see what it will pull for me. The next slide that we're going to see has an image on it, and I ran my prompt in ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot to see what it would give me, and it was all across the board. And because ChatGPT is my default, I was able to make it work better for me for my
Okay.
image specifically. So I just kind of default into that. And today, when we look at some prompt examples, we're going to use ChatGPT. But all of them are well known, well used. I think you get similar answers in a lot of things when you're looking them up. Again, just making sure that you're reading them and that it's giving you what you want.
Okay. So just to take a really quick step back, an LLM is a large language model. That's what it stands for.
Correct.
And to put it in uh, the most accessible way possible, if you've ever seen the movie The Big Bang Theory, the show The Big Bang Theory, um, imagine Sheldon if he's read every single book that's ever been written. He lives in a library and he could bring every single one of those answers um, to you. Somebody said there's no audio. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me,
I can hear
Jessica?
you.
Okay. Um, so essentially, a large language model can learn from the entire internet and respond based on your prompts. They can respond as a certain uh, persona. They could respond as a writer. They can respond as an actor. They can respond as if they were the notorious B.I.G. if you ask them to. Um, they don't understand the world like we do as humans, but they can mimic conversations and provide information based on the patterns that they've observed. And you ask it something, and based on that pattern, it gives you the best possible response. But with that in mind, you can train it just like Jessica just said. So let's move on. I just wanted to give that quick explanation.
Thank you. So the first part I wanted to dive into today was really just giving some quick examples of how I personally use LLMs in my life. I am a full-time employee, I'm a mother, I'm a spouse, like life is busy, right? And so as I was learning about AI, I was trying to figure out ways that not only could I apply it professionally, but how can I make my life easier in the day-to-day? And so some quick examples of this that I've seen or not, excuse me, not that I've seen, that I've actually used are I've built meal plans with AI and had it produce grocery lists for me. And I've been able to tell it what I have in my pantry and what kind of tools I have in my kitchen and what like food restrictions we have, what we like, what we don't like. And it's created all these recipes for me to make. I created this breakfast sandwich one time that I think I ate for 2 weeks straight. It was the most amazing breakfast sandwich I've ever had. So I rely heavily on it working from home. And then I have two young kids. So as I was going through my AI program, it was a lot of homework, right? And so my kids would come speak to me and we would sit and chat before bedtime. And I would kind of give them, they're 3 and 5. So the high level overview of what mommy's doing with AI. Well, from that, we ended up starting to write bedtime stories for my 5-year-old. And I would write a story for him using AI and we would sit and read it prior to like our bedtime routine. Another one that I personally haven't used, but I know, David, you mentioned to me while we were planning this was trip planning. And this is definitely on my to-do list now, although it's not on my image. Uh, but to do some trip planning, to plan out like the flights, the hotels, the itinerary, I am very excited to start using that and looking at what opportunities my family can see within the world from that. And then the last one that I use personally is I am a fundraising chair on a board for a nonprofit here. I live in Colorado, and I use Chat GPT to help me draft all of my communication when I'm doing grant applications, when I'm communicating with businesses in the community. Like I use it as my first go to help me summarize what the nonprofit does, what we're seeking for assistance, and it sets the tone perfectly for what we're trying to do. So I've been really pleased with it.
Interestingly enough, meal planning is the one out of these four that I haven't used yet. But I did
Yeah.
ask ChatGPT over the weekend to teach me how to make a baguette. So I will have to get back to you with the results when I actually do make that baguette.
I'll send
Um,
you my sandwich too. It,
yeah, please do. Yeah, I'm always up for a good breakfast sandwich. So interestingly enough, there may be a children's book about the Mighty Buckethead, which is a bedtime story that I've been telling my son since he was 2 or 3 years old. And recently, because of my interest in AI, I taught a class for Rutgers Business School on AI. He's been interested in it, and one of his prompts was to rewrite the story of the Mighty Buckethead using ChatGPT. So he wants to try and um, he's starting to get into it, and he's 9, so it's very exciting to see him adapt to and attack tech the way that I do. So happy dad moment there. But um, ChatGPT has so much use. The trip planning piece. I just had a coworker of mine who just walked by in the conference room right now. He asked me last week about planning a trip to Switzerland, and he had never used ChatGPT. So we went through and created some prompts, and within 10 minutes, he had an entire itinerary that fit in his budget, that was built based on his personality and his likes for his trip to Switzerland. And he was amazed. And I'm pretty sure I'll be teaching Chat GPT classes. So this is going to be very timely for me. Um, that's interesting. This is a very interesting personal use of it. But now, what everybody's here for. Let's get into the professional uses.
oh, I just saw a comment that
Yes,
he
I
did.
believe it.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so some examples for the professional use. Again, when I was building this out, surprise, surprise, I used Chat GPT. And so part of my prompting of this was understanding what information we could gather as procurement professionals without giving away the proprietary information of what we're dealing with. So some things that came up as the results and looking at things that we could be doing. Looking at spend analysis. If you're not very handy, maybe in Excel, creating formulas or like building out your own spend analysis, you can use an LLM to give you all the formulas to build out what you need. If you wanted to look at performance tracking, you could create dynamic dashboards using an LLM. It'll help you give all the information that you need, the formulas and everything. And you could start looking at trends for your suppliers over like a single supplier and how they're performing over a specific amount of time, or looking across marketplace with several suppliers that you have. You can also look at contract management. I know that there are a ton of suppliers out there that provide this, but should you not be using a platform already, you could create your own contract management where you're looking at expiration dates and sending yourself email notifications.
Yeah, we store a lot of our contracts in Google Drive, and Gemini, which I've just been given access to, helped me to create my version of a contract management system directly within the Google landscape in Google Workspaces. It's pretty interesting, pretty cool.
Did you set your email notifications?
Yes.
Those are the best. Some more for the professional use, you can create risk assessment. Like you can create a risk assessment matrix to review different things like financial health, market health, the reliability of the supplier. This is perfect if you're doing like QBRs with your supplier and you're wanting to build out images or information to show them how they've been performing.
Yep.
So it kind of ties in with the performance one we just looked at as well. But you can also look at like what other potential procurement risks exist in the world that the supplier operates in. When you're doing RFPs, you can use an LLM to help you build out the template of how you're evaluating. You can use it to help create your RFP template that you're communicating to the suppliers. There's a lot of potential here, and it can help you with associating the weights while you're doing the evaluation, and then of course email communication as well. You can always use it to help you build the communication, so you're sending a unified voice to all of your suppliers throughout the program or throughout the RFP. And then the last one, which I find to be probably one of the best ones that I've personally used so far professionally, is scripting negotiations. You can use an LLM without giving the proprietary information again to get those key talking points to bring into a negotiation. You can develop your strategy to bring in. And what I've also used is like working with my internal customers when we've talked about scoping of like maybe a professional services SOW. If I didn't understand the exact deliverable, and it was maybe a generic type of deliverable, but I personally didn't understand it, I went into ChatGPT and asked it to give me examples of what these could be so that I could have a better understanding and prepare myself more in those negotiations to ensure that I'm getting the end result that my internal customer was wanting.
That's awesome. So are you going to share some examples of these things?
I am.
Ooh.
Yes. So I have a quick little information slide about how to prompt. And then we have some examples that we can look at for these. So prompting, I think for some can be intimidating and some just jump right in and are totally comfortable with it. And regardless of where your level is, I think that this slide is super helpful in just understanding ways to be successful with this. So there was
Yes.
a Harvard article that I went and took some of these ideas from. So I will quote them right now or source them, cite them. But some of them for developing the good prompt, being specific, acting as if ChatGPT is the person that you're trying to recreate. And we can show that in some examples here in a little bit. Telling it how you want the outputs, right? Do you want it in a bulleted list? Do you want it in an image? Do you want it in a PowerPoint slide? Do you want it in an email format? Like ensuring that you're telling it what sort of output you want. Using do's and don'ts. Do include this, don't include this. So going back to my personal examples there, when I was creating my meal plans, do use these ingredients, don't use these, or do use this, an oven, an air fryer, don't use, I have one, but a Blackstone, right? Those kinds of things. Considering your tone and your audience, like what you want, what you're asking and what you want it to come out with, who is it going to be presented to? How do you want it to read? Is it professional? Is it funny? I've done some witty ones where I've actually told it, I want you to be witty. Please do X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
And then looking at, building on previous prompts. So if you put in a prompt and it doesn't work, or it doesn't get you the result that you want, like don't be afraid to continue to build on it to get it to where you need to be.
Yes.
And then because these are LLMs, they do hallucinate from time to time. So ensure that you're correcting mistakes that it's making. When I created the image for the personal slide, it made so many mistakes on spelling and different formatting that I had to correct it. And I iterated like probably 10 times before it gave me what I wanted. So while it can be super, super helpful, like you do need to correct its mistakes so it can continue to learn.
True.
And then if you don't know how to prompt or don't know where to start with your prompt, you can ask AI to tell you what it needs to prompt.
Yeah, yeah. It's oh, what is that? What is it that they say? Help me write the perfect prompt to get this result, right? That's
Yeah.
what it says. Ooh.
And then the acronym to remember, just in case you don't remember these like 8 other bullet points, is CARE. So it's context, describing the situation, ask, request the specific action, rules, providing constraints, and examples, demonstrating what you want.
Yeah. Keep that in mind for when you dive into Chat GPT immediately after this webinar, because I know you're not on your second screen trying to do it now. But at the end of this webinar, write that down somewhere, because that's going to help you get the best results from Chat GPT or Claude or whoever. Just remember that acronym. Context, action, rules, example. Right?
Ask with a specific action, but yes, all
Okay.
the same.
Thank you for.
And if, in case you can't remember, you could ask Chat GPT what CARE stands for prompting. So as long as you remember CARE, I think you're safe. All
Okay.
right. So I
So
have 3 different examples if you would like to jump into them.
I think we should. Let's
Awesome.
go.
And I would like to say, just for the audience, if there are other examples that you would like to ask while we're in here, I'm happy to run those as well, and we can kind of look at them. So please feel free to put anything in the chat if you would like. So at this point, I'm going to start toggling a little bit between this slideshow and ChatGPT, which I have up. So we have 3 prompts here. The first one we're going to look at is creating sample data around a retail company that sells custom t-shirts and jackets in youth and adult sizes. So we're going to ask ChatGPT to show us how we can use Excel to create a forecast model that predicts inventory needs based on historical purchase orders and time. So pardon, this is going to be a little bit clunky right here, but I'm going to pull this so I can copy and paste this. And one part that I do have missing here that I'm going to add is in a table format.
Specify how you want the output. Yeah, that's always good. Okay, so we've got historical purchase orders for t-shirts and youth sizes, quantities, inventory lead times. Okay. Interesting.
So then it gives you some information on how you could calculate monthly averages, creating a forecast, and how to set it up in a forecasting table. But one thing that I wanted to go a step further on this one is ask it a question on if we are in the Northeast US and it is November, just looking at historical November trends, like what should we be forecasting for sweatshirts?
Wait, ChatGPT can do predictive analytics?
It can.
Ooh, let's see it.
Of course, my brain is going blank right now on my prompting. forecast. Do you want to do adult or youth?
For adult jackets.
Okay. So it's going to outline again everything that you need information-wise.
Wow. Days below 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
So then right here, it's saying that we're going to use a simple linear, well, simple is a funny word to tie with this, but simple linear regression model. And so it's going to give you all the information here on how to do it. And then because it didn't give me, it gave me the forecast here, but maybe I want it to give me the actual like formulas to use within Excel. So we're going to just iterate one more time on here. And I'm always very formal and polite to my GPT. I don't know if that's like a thing you need to be, but I say please and thank you. Just keeping the man rolling.
It's because you've seen the Terminator and the Matrix, and just in case ChatGPT takes over a body, you want to be nice to it.
Exactly. I needed to know that I cared for it before. And in case anybody does work in Python instead of Excel, ChatGPT could provide you your syntax to copy and paste as well. But see here, it's giving you what you need based on your table to create it. So you could literally just copy and paste all of this in here and then come out with the same information that you're finding, or that ChatGPT provided, I should say.
Yep.
Sweet. Okay, well, I'm going to hop right back over to the second one if there's no further iteration on that. This one right here is a procurement professional for a company that's purchasing SaaS technologies. So we're going to ask ChatGPT to create us a data set in a table format and generate a Excel formulas that will help analyze the procurement spend, categorizing expenses by supplier, department, and month.
So now we're having ChatGPT do spend analysis for us.
Yes.
If you have an internal enterprise level LLM, you can use your actual spend data instead of having to use some crazy generated spend data that ChatGPT just came up with. But a lot of us don't have that yet. So if you can find ways to anonymize the data and make it as close to your spend data as humanly possible, you can get actionable results out of ChatGPT with.
I'm sorry, my copy didn't copy over. Please continue. Sorry to interrupt.
You can get actionable results out of ChatGPT that you can use to define your supplier strategy, that you can use to do in your SRM programs or your supplier relationship management or vendor management programs. You know, you can do your segmentation. You can actually do most of your vendor management work using ChatGPT.
And again, if your company doesn't have an enterprise model that you're using and you want to just find ways to cut the time in creating everything, this is the perfect way to do it, right? Create sample data that's going to outline, and you could even tell in your prompt like what your column titles were. So maybe you're naming the column titles similar to what yours are without giving your company's information. And you can then use this example as like a side-by-side on how to then proceed with yours.
Yep.
So you have in here the total spend by the supplier, the total spend by department, by month, by supplier and department, monthly spend by the supplier. Like there's so many different ways that you could look at this and slice it. And you didn't have to necessarily sit and think, oh man, I remember that formula, but I can't quite remember it. And so here it is for you.
And that was all done in less than a minute.
Yeah. And these are super easy to copy over. All of the different LLMs have a version of it, but you can just copy and paste it right into your Excel.
Very, very cool.
One other thing I did want to show while we're on this topic of creating these tables is in certain versions of LLMs, you can actually upload documents. And so I wanted to create, if I could, I'm going to scroll back down.
I think you're in the mini. You may have to go to
Yeah.
4.0, 4.0.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to ask. I've asked it. I'm just going to take this one because it's example data again. I don't think normally you would be asking it to put it in Excel format for you. You would just take one of your files.
Yep.
I'm going to save this real quick. And then now what's a question, I'm going to put you on the spot here, David, that you would like to see like based off of this file?
Ooh, so this is still t-shirts, doesn't have any customer data. Oh man, this is that you really did put me on the spot.
I'm actually going to take this one away and put a different one. So you can use the spend analysis one.
Okay. Now you got to scroll back up for me for a second so I can see the spend analysis results. Give me the total marketing spend for 2024 for in SaaS.
So you can do the typical upload or like drag and drop in, which is exactly what I did, and then
Okay.
ask what to look for. So this one might be a little bit more particular for like if your company does have an approved LLM that you're using, you could literally just drag and drop your files in, and then it'll
Okay.
give you here. So the total for 24 was 9,600.
And then let's separate it by percentage of spend by supplier.
All of it was with supplier C in this example.
So if you have a direct connection to your CLM or contracting apparatus, or even if you have contracts in a Google Drive, the LLM will have a connection to it. It will be able to query those documents, or if you upload those documents to the LLM, which I wouldn't advise you doing unless you have an enterprise LLM, you can get all of this information. You can get all of the contract terms. You can get contract summaries. You can get very specific information around line items directly into these contracts or spreadsheets. It is such a valuable use and useful tool to help you create summaries and executive presentations and all of that stuff. Anytime you have to extrapolate data, this is the way to do it. Again, provided you have you have a way to either make it anonymous if you're doing it publicly, or if you have an internal enterprise version of an LLM, then you can go all kinds of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about your leadership comes to you and asks you specific clauses within an agreement. If you have an enterprise level LLM that you're able to use, you throw that contract in there and ask for those specific clauses in a summary, and within a minute, you have everything you need.
And for I said earlier, I use the Google Drive and the Gemini, our corporate version. I had to find out the iterative changes to a contract year over year. We've had a contract with this particular vendor for 10 years. What changed? And I asked Google Gemini, show me how this contract has evolved over the years for these specific pieces, this specific use case. And it pulled out segment by segment, contract term by contract term, the language changes that happened contract over contract. years 1 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9. This changed. And the most important thing, they changed my affiliate language, which made it difficult for some of my business units to use it. So I had my negotiation plan essentially created based off of 2 prompts. It's fantastic. It's amazing.
Yeah, definitely an exciting thing
Yeah.
whenever you think about the potential and the possibilities of what you could be using it with or
Yes.
for. All right, so the last one we're going to go into, this one gets a little bit more specific. I think we've kind of gradually built on our care model that we mentioned in the previous slide. So with this one, I'll read it quickly. I'm a senior sourcing professional of 15 years of experience based in Northeastern US, working for a large global media company. I'm sourcing a compute-based SaaS program from a company that is one of 2 in its industry and has recently changed from a user-based to a compute-based model. The compute-based model has a higher overall cost. Help me generate a negotiation strategy that will mitigate the cost increases and provide the most value to my organization. One thing that we are missing in here, and I wanted to ask real quick, do you have a preference on the format it produces? Do we want like a summary?
I
Let it
want
go?
a summary, but I wanted to put it in, I wanted to wrap it like it's Biggie Smalls.
Okay. I love Biggie, so I'm really excited for this. Spelling is important.
Spelling is important.
Would it be like in tune with Biggie Smalls?
In the style of Notorious B.I.G.
There's periods, right? I love that I just said Biggie and then.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see what this would look like.
This is the fun part too, asking these questions and seeing Biggie style. It was all a dream.
Oh, goodness. Analyze usage like juicy. First, get your metrics, analyze the scene, look at your compute needs. What does it mean? Map out consumption. Okay, this is incredibly funny, but let's revise the prompt and have it do it regular.
I don't know if I can go back regular now. We
Yeah.
introduced me to a whole new style of. All right, I'm gonna let it run and do its thing, and then we can show everyone how we can iterate to summarize as well.
Data-driven analysis, current usage, growth forecast, cost impact of the new model. Okay. Here you've got a bunch of different negotiable items that you can put into your discussions with your supplier.
Yeah,
One of the first things that well, I'll let you go ahead and run with this, but you can ask it how to do any of these things.
correct. Yeah. So one thing we can ask it is to summarize maybe like a top 10 to focus on, and then how to do those top 10.
Sure. Why don't we do that?
All right, so it gave us our top 10. And then in here, it gives you your plan on how to accomplish it, your actions to take. It really helps for those days when your brain is maybe just not clicking on all four cylinders and you're like, I know this, but it's not there right now. Like, I really just need something to help get me to those thinking points. This is perfect for that.
One of the cool things about about ChatGPT is that it remembers. So during the course of this conversation, it may remember that we like Biggie Smalls, and it may respond in certain ways, calling back to that particular prompt. But more importantly, it remembers the data that you attach to it. So you can attach to this string of contents multiple contracts, multiple documents, multiple Excel sheets related to this same topic, and it will utilize all the information that you fed it to create its subsequent responses. So as we go through this, as we iterate through this, it may call back to that original question around predictive analytics and teaching you how to do predictive analytics and using the Excel formulas later on. It is an absolutely amazing thing. And it will also, as you can see here, suggest additional questions that you could ask. How do you reduce overages? What pricing trends exist? It can do limited market analysis for you as well. But always, as always, it does hallucinate. It can be a liar. So check your sources. Sorry, Jessica. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. A few things are popping in my head. The first one being I am using ChatGPT 4 right now, which is a paid version. So just to note, ChatGPT 3.5 is the free version, and you can get a small glimpse of usage for 4 for free. And then once you use too many in that day, it will push you back to 3.5. The main difference that I've seen in some of this, aside from being able to do attachments, is the knowledge base and the years that ChatGPT, at least 3 and probably 3.5 as well, were trained on are a little bit older than maybe what you would find on some of the other versions. And so if you were to ask it in like 3 or 3.5, I don't even know if 3 is actually available anymore. I think it's only 3.5. If you were to ask it to pull you like modern news, like today's news in a specific country, it wouldn't be able to pull you news articles. Whereas like ChatGPT 4 could do that. Or if you're going into some of the other LLMs, it can do it for you. So sometimes the training is a little bit delayed, but
Yeah.
training is so vast that you're usually able to like get the information you still need. The other thing I was going to show you as you were mentioning on the remembering, one thing I can show briefly real quick if you'd like, we've not in this prompting example talked about my nonprofit that I'm on the board for at all, but because I've used ChatGPT before, I can show a quick prompt on the information it will pull based on what it's already learned from instances before. Are you okay?
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. So quick shameless plug. The nonprofit I am a part of is called Mountain Post Santa's Workshop. So we are a nonprofit that supports military families, Gold Star and active duty for children for the holidays. Beautiful thing. I love Christmas. I'm all about it. But here you can see I've not talked about Mountain Post Santa's Workshop at all in this one, and it still knows because I've used it already and trained it in other areas. So nice little example.
Very cool.
Okay, we did get a question that says, any suggestions on how to present the efficiencies and time savings to leadership for the ability to use AI in the workplace? I think my suggestion, and David, please feel free to build on this, would be to do something exactly like what we're doing right now, right? Create sample data and show the value of what you can get out of it and how quickly you can, and then translate that into how that works with your agreements or your responsibilities at work.
100%. That would be my answer. If you can do it live with them or bring in a set of data that looks very closely to data that they are familiar with and show them what you could do with it, that would be the way to go. It's always better to show rather than just tell, right? You're all looking at some of the cool stuff that ChatGPT can do, and you're already thinking about how you can use it when you get back to the office or log off of this webinar. I know I am.
And I just realized I typoed in my prompt and it still gave me what I want. So you don't have to be perfect in your prompting.
No, it's very intuitive. It does make mistakes, but as long as you keep iterating in your prompting, it will remember and it will get back to it. Chat GPT knows that my son and I love basketball, so when we do look for trips, it tends to make recommendations around basketball games.
That's amazing.
It's pretty interesting and it's pretty cool.
Well, awesome.
We're coming close to time. Let's do tips and tricks.
Yep, we just had a quick last portion of it for tips and tricks. So just looking at some do's and don'ts, more or less. So responding step by step to achieve the most accurate responses. If you're using this in a work set for professional use, please ensure that you're asking it, like, what is the reasoning behind your answer? Can you provide me the sources that you use to create this answer? Like, ask it and make it dig further for you so that you can validate the information that you're using is not just the first iteration from your prompt. You can do some role playing. So exactly like what we did, right? I'm a procurement professional. You're a procurement professional. Like, tell me what you would do in this situation.
Yep.
Not being too vague or open-ended. You do need to give it, again, thinking about care, right? You do need to give it left-right boundaries on what you want and what you want it to look like. But at the same time, you don't want to overload it and tell it too much. You want to give it some room to be creative, because if you give it too many restrictions, it's not going to produce that extra like thought process or brain power that you're using it for. And then the last one, don't misinterpret the output as factual, right? Like, they do hallucinate, as we've mentioned several times today. The information that you're getting can be incorrect. It can be misspelled. It cannot be in the correct voice that you're wanting. So you do want to make sure that you read it and ensure that it's representing what you want. And
Excellent.
that's it.
Excellent. Jessica, thank you so much. This was so informative, so very cool use of the technology. And it wasn't just me that was telling people how cool it is. That's always great.
Anyway,
Thank you
it's
so
better than
much
one.
for your prompts. Thank you so much for your preparation. You were wonderful. I know you were nervous. I couldn't even tell.
Oh,
And
thank you.
Evan, yes, the webinar is recorded. It'll be up on YouTube in a couple of days. Kathy is really good about making sure they are posted up on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. We appreciate it. Hopefully, give us a follow on LinkedIn. We do some more AI and a lot of procurement and supply chain stuff. Follow Jessica. She's up and coming. She's creating her own content, and the LinkedIn links are there. Everyone have a great rest of the day, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you all.